with us today. We want to bring in Jeff Kapuscinski, Chief External Relations Officer. Thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
I know you and your team have been extremely busy since the COVID crisis, but if I can just kind of start off with, for those that aren't familiar with Common Ground, give us a little bit of background about the organization and the services that you offer.
Well, Common Ground is a crisis response agency. We celebrated our 50th anniversary last year. We actually originated in the Birmingham area. It was an effort by parents and teachers in the Birmingham School District to address a rapid rise in drug use and suicide rates. And that idea was where our Resource and Crisis Helpline was born. That program still exists today, and we have added to it over the past 50 years. We provide services out of the Resource and Crisis Center, which is located on the county complex in Pontiac. And people can walk in and receive crisis stabilization services. We also have a sober support unit there and crisis residential unit. So really being able to help people probably at their lowest point in life is what Common Ground is all about.
So if I can ask you, just because I'm kind of getting a little bit beat up here about not having people on the show with the direct West Bloomfield address, you service the people within our community. And that's one of the reasons that I brought you guys on. We're a community. And even if it ends like a half mile across the border, you're servicing people of all demographics.
That's very true. And if it helps, our administrative office is in Bloomfield Hills. So we do have a presence here. But yes, our organization serves people throughout Oakland County and actually beyond, but primarily Oakland County.
Can I ask you, because we've been hearing so much, I think, and I hope, but maybe if you can counter this, one of the good things to come out of this COVID crisis is for once, we're actually starting to talk about mental health. And I hope that it is bringing that conversation to where people don't have that stigma attached. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I have to agree. I've not seen any research that has been published since the beginning of the pandemic, but that's certainly the sense that we're getting. We're getting a lot more people coming forward, telling us that they need help, and that really is a very important first step in the process.
And for those people, it's so hard to take that first step so many times. So even just reaching out is some progress. So can you talk a little bit about, have you guys seen an increase of need during this time?
Oh, absolutely. It was fascinating. I guess maybe that's the wrong word, but at the start of the pandemic, we actually saw a 50% increase in the people calling the Resource and Crisis Helpline. That crisis line answers probably 50,000 calls a year, and so that averages out to almost 1,000. What do I want to say? Almost 1,000 a week is what we'll get there. And we saw a 50% increase at the start of the pandemic. Of course, that coincided with fewer people wanting to come in, fearful about, getting COVID, but we kept our doors open the entire time. We saw people in our facilities the entire time, and we're able to help them at this important time in their lives, as well as the difficult times associated with the pandemic.
So, Jeff, can I ask you as well, because there is still that stigma, like we're hoping it's, going away a little bit. Like we should look at mental health as someone that says they have, cancer, like that stigma, right? Because we know that it's a crisis situation. So with that too, can you talk about a little bit more about some of the centers? Because Michigan, prior to COVID-19, really, we kind of put the mental health like in a little package and put it underground that we didn't want to talk about, right? Like I'm thinking I was going to say purse, but that's like a lady thing. But we know that there has been a shortage of places for people to go for mental health. So what services other than the crisis hotline do you guys offer?
That's a great question. And I have to say that I agree with you. I think that unfortunately, some of the headline news that's been occurring, specifically with shootings, has raised the importance of this topic and people's level of comfort in discussing it. Common Ground has recently opened a brand new program, something that we call behavioral health urgent care, which we think is a very important addition to the continuum of services available for behavioral health in our community. Common Ground tends to evaluate and rank our offerings based on the level of restriction. It's always our goal to get people the most appropriate level of care in the least restrictive setting. And to put that into perspective, we believe that at the top of that spectrum, in the most restrictive setting, would be an inpatient psychiatric bed or unit. And then from there, we kind of step down. And so you see a lot of medical urgent cares in the community, but you rarely see a behavioral health urgent care. And so we were able to open this program, and currently it's operating virtually so that people can access it through our website, and they'll meet face-to-face, much like we are, in a secure platform, and be able to meet with trained individuals to discuss their particular situation and hopefully direct them to the most appropriate place for their care. It's an exciting new program. We hope to offer a physical location before the end of the year, but we think it's an important element and a service that will allow us to see more than an additional 15,000 people each year, which I think is going to be important for this community.
Well, it really is about saving lives. But can I ask you as well, because we know there's an employee shortage going on, are you suffering from that as well? And maybe too, can volunteers kind of fill the gap if you have one?
Great question. And yes, like everyone, there is a shortage and we are dealing with that. I think one of the benefits and one of the reasons that we launched this service virtually is that the clinicians that we employ can actually be located anywhere within the state. As long as they're licensed in the state of Michigan, they can be providing that care and treatment from wherever they are in the state. And that really has helped us to fill the positions that we have. And we have very specific levels of staffing specifically for that program. When someone enters the virtual waiting room, they're met by what we call a master's level clinician. And that's somebody that has a master's degree in either social work, counseling, or psychology. And they meet with the individual, talk about their particular situation, and put them through several assessments that will help determine the ultimate course of treatment. The other staff that we have available through the virtual urgent care is a nurse practitioner, a psychiatric nurse practitioner. And the importance there is that oftentimes what we're seeing coming through that program are people that can't get in maybe to see their therapist or their psychiatrist. And perhaps they need a bridge medication if they're on medication to help them manage their anxiety, for example. That's something that can occur through this program because we staff with nurse practitioners.
You're such a lifeline to so many people in the community, Oakland County, but including the greater West Bloomfield community. So can I ask you, I know that there was a new suicide crisis hotline that came out this weekend, but you guys have already had a mental health crisis line out there. What is the number? Anyone listening or watching right now, reach out for help. We say that. If I can say, like, I had a brother that committed suicide a couple years ago, and it was so trying, So this number can save lives. So how can people reach out?
Thank you. The Resource and Crisis Helpline is still in existence. It's still operating. People can call it 24/7. Actually, beyond calling, they can also text and chat. Oftentimes, for example, in the case of a domestic violence situation, it's not safe for somebody to speak out loud. So we offer these nonverbal forms of communication as well. But the number for the Resource and Crisis Helpline is 231 1127. Now, in addition, you mentioned the fact that 988 came online earlier this year. That has been in the planning for several years, and for all of the reasons that we've been talking about, to bring mental health to the forefront and accessibility and availability of help for individuals who need it. So 988 is out there, 988 is live. Michigan has had a very specific and strong response to this. In fact, a year ago, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services launched something called the Michigan Crisis and Access Line. They hired Common Ground to staff that line for them. The intention was to set this up as a statewide crisis line and eventually have the 988 calls roll into that Michigan Crisis and Access Line. So that service is currently available for anybody in the state of Michigan. And if it's helpful, if it's comforting for people to know, it is Common Ground that is answering those phone calls.
Mm. Well, can I just extend gratitude to you and your staff? We're so blessed to have you available to us here in the greater West Bloomfield community. It's not an easy job. It wasn't before COVID, and I know it isn't easy now. So thank you so much for the services that you offer.
Ronnie, thank you. It's our pleasure, and we're proud to serve this community.
Saving lives. And it just, please, 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 anyone out there, pick up the phone. Text, make the phone call, help us on the other line. Thanks so much, Jeff.
My pleasure. Thank you.